Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to look at some advanced trade management techniques we can use in MTPredictor, and in particular, listening to what the market is actually telling you by its own actions. And I'd like to look at an example that unfolded on one of the USE minis yesterday on the YM. But first, as usual, we start with our risk disclaimer and remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken, they're just shown for illustration and trading purposes only. Remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing, or put another way, all professional traders know and understand, but more importantly accept that losses can and will and do unfold. It doesn't matter what trading approach you use to the markets, there always will be losing trades. Right, the trade setup I want to look at yesterday is this TS1 W3 trade setup here that unfolded on the 3-minute chart of the E-mini. Initially this seemed like it was a good trade setup on a blue stroke black MTP trend. The only slight issue was that we weren't coming off a major or an important DP support level here on the higher time frame, because you can see if I put the DP level up here, it had gone through it. There wasn't support on the this is the day session only, but if you go out to the same on the 15-minute chart, you can see here's my analysis from yesterday on the 15-minute chart, and that was the same low there on the 15-minute chart on the 24-hour chart. There you go, on the 24-hour chart. So there was support coming in on DP on the 24-hour chart, but not on the day session only. So what does that mean for trade management? Well, if we go back to that the 3-minute chart and I place the analysis on, we right mouse click, do analysis. Now normally our target for a W3 or wave 3 trade setup is the typical wave 3 WPT, and as you can see here the market never reached that level. So if you had been hanging on for that level, the market just never got there. So if I drag it down to the close, you would have come out basically on close for, well, a small profit, about 2-hour profit. But of course, obviously you'd have had to sit through all this all day, and that would have been quite painful. Just clear that all off. So were there any hints by the market's action that the market wasn't going to go much higher than where it did here? Well, a couple of things. So if I just clear this all off and reset the scale, for you guys who have been following MTPredictor for a while will know that we always look to the higher time frame chart for areas of large degree support and resistance. So if I go back to the 15-minute chart and I go back to using bar replay, I go back to about here somewhere. So this is where the TS3 W3 trade setup was on the 3-minute chart here. But can you see how there was a pivot high came in here on the 15-minute chart? So if I right mouse click, do decision point, can you see how now we actually had potential DP resistance on the 15-minute charts? Remember, these are on the chart in advance. They're there before the market even gets there. So if I turn trading mode off, you can see what happened. The market went right up to that level there, where it actually gave a TS3 sell setup, but it came up to 15-minute resistance. So let's see how that looked on our 3-minute chart. There it is. There's the 15-minute resistance on our 3-minute chart, which, as you can see, actually nailed the very high of the day for us. Nailed the very bar of the high of the day. So our MTP trend was also grey stroke blue, went into grey or black as the market trend was in the process of reversing. As the market then rolled over, it then went red as well. So that was the first thing that was telling you that there was a potential area of possible resistance at this level here that the market had to break through to get up to the original target. Now let's place the Elliott waves on the count. If I right mouse click here, do Elliott wave intermediate. In fact, what I'll do is I'll use training mode so we can see what happened at the time. So I jump right the way back to here so you can see what would have happened at the time. So as the market was going up, remember you wouldn't be looking to do sell setups here because the MTP trend was grey, so you wouldn't want to be reversing what was an otherwise long position just because the market was going up and the MTP trend was grey and you weren't actually at your 15-minute resistance yet. So the large degree trend was still up. So you wouldn't be looking to do anything on these sell setups. You'll still be long off this W3 buy setup here. So let's right mouse click here. Let's do Elliott wave intermediate and see what the Elliott wave patterns was telling you. Well, as you can see here, the market actually rallied up in a 5-wave sequence. Not only that, it was right at the typical wave 5 WPT. So can you see how there was yet another thing that was telling you that this particular rally here was potentially coming to an end. So if you're already in this trade setup, let's place the analysis back on again, rather than wanting to wait till the market went right up to this level here, can you see how the market was telling you that it probably won't get there? So it made a lot more sense to, at the very least, perhaps trail below the 1 bar low, which would have been just about there. So 1 tick below the bar's low, just about here, and locking in a potential just over 3.4 hour profit. So if the market did then carry on up, then you'd still stay long, but if it then reversed back over again and started to decline off this level, then you would have locked in a potential 3.4 hour profit. So that's just a tip that I know we try to let our trades run. In other words, what we're trying to do is you're trying to look for markets to run up to our further targets, because over time we'd like to have profits that are large, much larger than the initial risk. So a 9-hour profit would have been great, but if the market is overwhelmingly telling you by its own actions, which it was here, that the move is potentially over, then you have to listen to what the market is telling you. You have to go by what the market's saying. It's no good just putting your head in the sand and just saying, oh, I anticipate it's going to go to X, Y, Z. If the market's telling you or giving you other reasons why it doesn't look like it's going to do that, then you have to listen to it. So this was a good example here of why we had the 15-minute resistance and the 5-wave rally, and why it was sensible to come in to lock in that profit. So hopefully this has been a good example to show you how to use the tools in MTPredictor to help gauge what the market's telling you as it's unfolding when you're in a trade. As a little PS to this, for the more experienced users among you and the more aggressive users among you, a potential manual setup of this could have been, if I right mouse click again, here's your 5-wave sequence. Now you had a 5-wave sequence going into higher time resistance, so trying to pick the end of a wave 5 is quite dangerous because it's a trend termination setup. But if it's unfolding at higher time frame resistance, then it could be a potential manual trade for the more experienced and more aggressive users among you. So where would the target for this be? Well, off a completed 5-wave sequence, the target would be the DP from the prior wave 4. So I go back to here, place DP on from here, and this would be your potential target. You could now then use our manual risk reward. So if I right mouse click, the manual risk reward, I do first click on the bar of entry, I do the second click on the bar of the stop, which in this case would be the same bar. I then come down to here as your potential target where this DP is. Remember, the position sizing still takes control of the number of contracts to keep the initial risk small under control, and if the market got down to this level, it could be a potential 5-hour profit. Let's turn training mode off and see what it did. Well, for the rest of the day it worked really nicely, because if I zoom in a bit, you can see that 5-wave high was actually the high of the day. The market then declined, albeit very choppily, declined down here, and then it actually reached our target just about there. Can you see it? Whoops, just can't quite get the mouse right there. It reached the target there, which was the end of that decline down before a bounce rally just before the close. So that actually worked very nicely indeed, in that off the wave 5 high, down into the DP from the prior wave 4 for a potential 5-hour profit. So that was a nice trade as well. So a good day on the YM yesterday, if you were paying attention to what the market was telling you and not just blindly following the setups as per a black box system. And this is what we try and teach MTPredictor users, is to actually use the tools in the software, and that's what they are. They're tools. They're tools that allow you to evaluate trade setups, allow you to monitor the market and evaluate how the market's moving at the time, and then potentially do trade setups based in and around that, using position size and to keep your initial risk small or your losses small and your profits large. So a nice day on the YM yesterday, using the more advanced techniques in the MTPredictor software program.